International Amateur Athletics Federation is got its elections just coming around the corner, and perhaps two of the greatest athletes of their generation or any generation, pole vaulter Sergey Bubka and runner Sebastian Coe, are contesting these elections. If you had the vote, whom would you vote for?
Tough, because if you tell me to pick one, it'll be very difficult for me. I'm a huge middle distance runner fan, so my bias would be Coe. But can you take away the 35 times that Bubka broke a world record?
His own record most of the time.
Yeah. And the 6 consecutive world championships, he got 1 Olympic gold. But between both of them, I think a lot of people, I just feel that it's not going to be a very close election. I think there's going to be a decent enough lead that Coe might take in case it comes down to an election and Bubka doesn't say, okay, I don't want to contest. I think Coe might take it.
I think it's really, these elections normally I never really bother with them, but this one is important because the IAAF has got all these doping controversies going around it, and recently some of the blood data of athletes who participated in the London Marathon was leaked, and it's because this data is difficult to analyze. It's suggested that many of them were doped up to their gills. So I mean, if that's happening and the data seems to suggest it and the IAAF has access to that data, are they covering up perhaps one of the world's greatest doping scandals?
I think they are, and I think it's come at a time. I mean, just look at the timing. It's come 2 weeks back or a week and a half, and you got the election on the 19th in Beijing. A lot of fingers are pointing towards Russia in terms of a lot of athletes who have doped. Now, how is it going to affect the elections? That's the big thing here, or the big factor. Bubka is Ukrainian, so I don't know if you point fingers at Russia, whether votes are slipping off or not. And Mo Farah has already said that, go ahead, do whatever you want, I'm clean. So that takes Coe off because he's UK. There are a lot of fingers being pointed at Kenya. Now Kenya supports Coe. So I don't know how or why this thing came out just in time, just before the elections, to make it a little more interesting. But looking at Coe, looking at the way he has always said about doping, he's always maintained that even if he becomes president, let's assume he's become president or he's becoming president, he says doping is not my priority at this moment of time because we are anyway very stringent with it. Now after this report,
I don't buy that at all.
Actually, nobody buys it now because, there are just too many fingers being pointed in different directions. How Coe is going to tackle this? Because whatever Coe said that doping is not one of his priorities came much before the scandal broke out. So I don't know how it's going to happen. He's already traveled the planet, according to himself, 4 times now because he's been canvassing for votes and he's been doing it for 2 years now. What's very, very interesting for me, apart from the athletics, apart from the doping, everything is 2 of the greatest athletes competing, not on track, but competing for the post of president. Do you think we'll ever see this happening in India or any other world sport?
That's actually very interesting because in India we seem to have businessmen and politicians as administrators. Cricket or any other sport for that matter, cricket isn't unique in that. And while in some cases they do a good job when it comes to bringing in money, half the time it just appears that they're in it for the foreign trips and for the power and other things which go along with being part of sports.
You can always say a businessman is required, and a lot of athletes in India, a lot of cricketers in fact have said that a businessman brings in the money. Right. A politician also knows how to get money. A sports guy can step up for administration. One of those guys who I think is going to really come up is either going to be Saurav or Rahul Dravid. But to see in the Indian Olympic Association 2 athletes standing up and fighting to become president, I really wish we could have that day here where you have athletes of stature, a Bindra versus, a PT Usha or whatever, just take 2 big athletes and tell them to fight it out for the IOA presidentship. I think that's going to be fantastic.